Hello and welcome to the Stop Down Photography Podcast, Episode 1. I'm your host, Scott Davenport, and today I ask myself the question, why photography? So I'm embarking on this new adventure in podcasting, and thanks very much for taking the time to join me. This podcast is the latest of a series of endeavors and journeys that my passion for photography has taken me. And so in this inaugural episode, I thought it would be best to share my backstory a bit and why I started this podcast, and then what I think the podcast is going to be about, what its focus will be. So let me start with my origin story for photography, and then I'll get into why am I making the podcast. As long as I can remember, I've always enjoyed cameras and found photography very interesting. As a kid, I remember having those little 110 film cameras, the kind that came in a cardboard box. I think you can still find them occasionally in like a drugstore. You can buy them, use them, and toss them away when you're done. It wasn't until the 1990s that I got, let's say, the first step in being serious in photography. I'd switched coasts from New Jersey to California and had good weather year-round. So I'm out hiking a lot, and the ritual was get up on a weekend morning, get out for a several-hour hike, and treat myself to lunch at a restaurant or something like that. And somewhere along the way, I realized I'm seeing all these beautiful places. A lot of times I have an entire landscape to myself. Why not get a camera and capture some of these, bring back some of the memories? So I got my first serious SLR, I'm going to say mid to late 90s. It was some sort of Canon. I recall Andre Agassi commercials where he was hitting these colored tennis balls around, and I thought, well, that looks like a cool camera to get, so maybe I'll get one of those. Other than that, it really wasn't doing anything serious with my photography. Still purely like that blind squirrel mode. Even the blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while. So there was a good photo in there, here and there. But that's about what happened with my photography in the 90s. Jump into the early 2000s. Things are changing. My life is changing. I'm starting a family. My hiking has slowed down because you're yet young kids at home. But then also the digital age of photography is starting. That opened up some new opportunities, and those things kind of combined together. So I was really being the family photographer, capturing a lot of the kids being kids. Kids are adorable, so we like to take pictures of them, and started to try to grow as a photographer, but really without a rudder. Kind of like the everything photographer. Everything seemed interesting. I'd take pictures. Didn't do much with them. It really was still, every once in a while I'd get something that was really good. Didn't quite know why, and that really made the decade go by, I say, kind of quickly, photographically speaking. Jump forward a decade to the 2010s. At this point, I had a reasonably healthy digital library, and I made the conscious decision to get serious about the photography, get organized with what I had, and really start to improve as a photographer. We're at this point 2 decades into me kind of kicking around with a camera and not really putting my mind to it. So that's what 2010s were all about. And there was definitely a shift in my thinking with photography. I would start to seek out places to get a better photo, not just show up somewhere and snap away. Worked on compositions, worked on the fundamentals, got to know my camera and its settings, lens sharpness, and all the technical aspects of working our gear. But it really did keep circling back to fundamentals, composition, angles, subject placement, those sorts of things. Now, this is also the same decade where YouTube really started to pick up as a place to share information. I got to a point where I was competent enough with a camera that I started sharing information on YouTube, made a few videos. That led me to writing some books as the channel grew, and that led me to formally starting a photo business and hosting workshops. And the thing that really connects with me, or when I think back to this time of my photography, was seeking out new places. The camera switched from not just being a tool to capture the world, but also a vehicle that would take me somewhere else, would take me to a place that I would not have otherwise gone. And these are all places just in my backyard, in my hometown. San Diego is a beautiful city, lots of wonderful areas around it. And many of them, are not necessarily off the beaten path, but they're just a little bit off the beaten path. And so you have to go seek them out. And the camera led me to going and doing those things. So that's really a wonderful part of photography, that it becomes something that can augment your life, not just capture it. Now, over the last 12 to 18 months, it's been a reflective period. I think back to my early days of hiking, and the draw of those things was really twofold. One was it was a way to slow down, just take in the world, enjoy life. The simplicity of a hike is you just go take a walk. And I really liked that. It was a nice balance to what becomes a very, very busy life, especially in today's day and age where things move so quickly. And the second, common thread with my photography to this day is doing it for the joy of it. I like making a great photo. I like trying to find the next great photo. And it's another way to slow down, pay attention, experience the world. And that kind of brings me to this moment right now. Why make this podcast? Well, let's see. My dynamic with photography is certainly different than it was in the beginning of 2010s, right? 2010, 2011, family photographer. Now I'm doing lots of photo content, videos, blogs, books, and those take time. And so that does mean there's less quote unquote me time with a camera. The little devil on my shoulder is always saying, hey, you're out there with the camera. How can you make this into a piece of content? I've got to keep that little devil in check and make sure I carve out time just to enjoy and take photos. And that's actually the driving force behind this podcast. Now, this kind of seems counterintuitive, right? Go start a podcast and generate more content for another medium because you have less time. Scott, that doesn't make sense. Well, the goal for me with the Stop Down podcast is to remind myself of the simpler joys of photography. Slow down, remember why you picked up a camera, spend time thinking about, maybe I'll call it the philosophy of my photography or photography in general. Why do we do the things we do? Why do we want to pick up that camera again and go make a photo? And I hope that this will be interesting for you as well, and you'll want to come join me on this journey. Some of the topics that I want to cover on this podcast include making the time for photography. Life gets busy, and there are ways that we can find small pockets of time to make photography part of our daily lives. Another is creating art versus making memories. Not every photo has to be a 5-star gallery killer. It's okay to have other photos as well. That one's near and dear to my heart, and I think I'll be talking about that one really, really soon. The energy of others, that's another idea where, using other people's energy to break through a photographic funk. And I've got a bunch of other ideas as well. If you've got ideas, I'd love to hear them. You can drop comments on the podcast. You can also contact me directly through stopdownpodcast.com. But looking ahead, I envision this show to be much less technical and much more about the craft. It's not going to be a gear show. It's not going to be a news show. And yeah, I'm sure that I'll mention gear on one show or a product on another show, or mention news stories when they relate to the theme of the podcast. It's not going to be a speeds and feeds show. That's just not me. And there are plenty of other places to get all the details on the latest new tech. I don't have a time goal for the podcast. It's not like every episode needs to be 10 minutes or 30 minutes. It will really just vary on the topic. Some will be longer, some will be shorter, and that's just how it'll go. I may have a guest on the podcast from time to time. I really haven't thought through that very much, but hey, I'm not going to rule it out. But overall, I want the podcast to be a slower, deeper look at the craft of photography and how it can enrich our lives. And that sounds really deep and heavy when I say it out loud, but if you've gotten this far in the podcast, I think you're going to enjoy it long term. I think that answers the question of why photography, and as I'm thinking about it, I could have also entitled this first episode as Why Photography without the question mark. The why of photography. That's what I want this podcast to focus on. There's plenty of other of my endeavors that tell you how to do things, how to set your camera, how to move sliders, why we do those things. That's what I want to focus on here, and I really look forward to sharing thoughts with you and interacting with you through this new medium, this new to me of podcasting. A little bit of studio news this week. I have been building out a separate space to record the podcast, and building out sounds, I'm not doing construction. I'm rearranging a room, but the reason I'm doing that is so that I've got some consistency with the audio quality for the podcast. In the first few episodes, if you notice some variation, that's me probably moving things and getting things hung up on walls and anything else I might need to do to make things acoustically better. But it's coming along. Yeah, it's my muscles are feeling it because I've been moving a lot of stuff around. But yeah, it's coming along. So I'm really hopeful that will translate to crisp, clean audio for the show. I'll take a moment and issue a special thank you to supporters on Patreon. I cannot thank you enough for your support, and it is what made this podcast possible, and it helps thousands of other photographers enjoy photography. Patron members, they listened to an early cut of this first episode, gave me some great input, and the show is definitely better for it. If you're interested in learning more about the patron community, check the show notes, and there's a button on every page of stopdownpodcast.com where you can learn more about it. And that is going to wrap up the first episode of the Stop Down Photography Podcast. I'm working on another topic for you next week, and if you enjoyed today's podcast, please rate and review it on Apple Podcasts. You can also find episodes at stopdownpodcast.com, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And until next time, my name is Scott Davenport. Have fun.